Touring Car Series. It's the first ever Asia Pacific Series with the cars in the 2-litre class. The cars has raced in the British Championship, French Championship and virtually all over Europe now. 6 races on 3 different tracks: Fuji in Japan, Macau and Wellington in New Zealand as well. Main favourites come from Europe, not surprisingly, with the 2 BMW Schnitzer cars, driven by Joachim Winkelhock, the 1993 British champion, and by Steve Soper. Their main rival is probably likely to be Tim Harvey, former champion also of the British Championship in a BMW back in 1992. More recently, he's been racing front-wheel drive car, the Renault Laguna, with which he had success towards the end of the 1994 season.
Front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive, that's not the problem. The problem is just understanding the car and how to get the most out of it, because it is very different, and it's actually very sensitive to the changes we're making. So if we'd had more testing, I'm sure we'd be up there, but to jump in the cars completely fresh and effectively have 2 one-hour practices on a new circuit makes it very hard for us.
And so to the first round of the Asia Pacific Series at Fuji. It was combined with a round of the Japanese Touring Car Championship, and the guys for the Asia Pacific didn't do so well, really. Soper qualified down in 13th, Winkelhock was 14th, Tim Harvey qualified down in 16th, Andrew Gilbert-Scott was there in 19th place, and Justin Bell down in 34th. And also starting way down after problems was Anthony Reid. Well, Steve Soper was in the pit straight away with fuel pump problems as the rest of the field got underway and headed down towards the first corner. And the leader of the race, Hoshino, in his Nissan, but straight away there were problems towards the back of the field. There were 38 cars entered into this race, and well, it wasn't very likely perhaps that they were all going to make it through the first couple of corners, and indeed they didn't. So with the race being stopped, we were on for a second start. Once the second start got underway, it was very much the same story, with Kazuyuki Hoshino still leading the race, but once again there was another problem a little further back. Prince Leopold von Bayern involved in an incident which meant that the red flags came out for the second time. It was all good news for Steve Soper, however, who managed to get his fuel pump repaired and rejoin the back of the grid. And so on to the third start of the race, and Tom Christensen beginning to challenge for the lead. Hoshino coming under pressure in the number 12 car, and the Dane Tom Christensen going through into the lead. Christensen had finished second in the Japanese Championship, or would go on to finish second after this. Steve Soper was fighting his way up, but eventually he went off with problems with his car. Well, Christensen wasn't having much better luck himself, with the front suspension collapsed on his Toyota and he went out of the lead of the race. And so Hoshino indeed did come through to take the victory in front of, believe it or not, Anthony Reid, the man who'd started in 31st place at the beginning of it all, finishing in 2nd place, and Joachim Winkelhock finishing in 3rd. So on to the second race at Fuji, with on the front row Hoshino and Anthony Reid. And could Reid take the victory this time after such an incredible drive in the first part of the race? Winkelhock making a terrible start, passed by several of the Japanese. And meanwhile, Tim Harvey was trying to fight a way past his teammate Justin Bell, fighting for 16th place. Well, the Fuji circuit very, very demanding, and soon a big battle was developing up front. Hoshino, Anthony Reid and Tom Christensen all running absolutely together, running at about 155 miles an hour at the end of this nearly 1 mile long straight at Fuji, and Anthony Reid just diving down the inside of Hoshino and taking the lead. In fact, Christensen going through as well. Well, further back, Winkelhock is fighting his way back, and in fact Hoshino dropping back a little bit. So second place goes to Joachim Winkelhock now in the number 1 BMW. Well, Hoshino was in trouble. He would soon retire, coming into the pit lane. And meanwhile, the battle for 6th place was going on. Soper trying to come back up from the rear of the field once again, taking 6th place from Aguri Suzuki. Suzuki getting whacked by Tom Christensen, but being pushed straight again, so both of them being able to continue. So Soper now fighting his way up further, in fact now up into 4th place, going past both Sekia and Misaki, and another sterling drive from Steve Soper. In fact, just a few laps before the end, he would go on to take 3rd place from Hashemi. Well, all that hard charging perhaps wore the tyres out a little bit more than Soper would have planned. A little bit of a mistake under braking as the tyres just beginning to not feel quite as grippy as they did in the early part of the race, and in fact he dropped back down to 7th place. So Anthony Reid takes the victory in the HKS Vauxhall Cavalier, or Opel Vectra as it's run in Japan. And a tremendous victory for the man who started from virtually at the back of the first race and fought his way up to the front. But Winkelhock taking the lead in the Asia Pacific Series, as Reid not registered for that championship.
Yeah, it was a good weekend, really, I must say. Yesterday after the practice I was not so confident for today, but I had a very good car. There was a very good balance in the car, and especially in the second race I had a very good fight in the beginning of the race with Hoshino. It was very, very hard, but fair. And this is a kind of motorsport which I like very much. And so now I look forward to Macau, because I like Macau very much.
So to the next round, and although Tim Harvey hadn't had a terribly good time at Fuji, finishing 16th and 17th at the Japanese track, once he got to Macau, he was getting much more on the pace with the BMW, getting more familiar with it, and he was able to qualify his car in 4th position. It was Anthony Reid, however, on pole position. Now remember, Reid not registered for the championship, so not scoring points in the Asia Pacific Series, and he was being attacked once again by the 2 BMWs. Soper just running a bit too wide though, and clouting the tyres, and that giving the chance for Winkelhock to take 2nd place. So Anthony Reid leading the race from those 2 BMWs, with Tim Harvey having dropped a little bit of ground at the start of the race, having qualified 4th, but losing out 1 place to Tom Christensen. Winkelhock, however, was in superb form. Just watch him scraping the barrier, running it right out to the very edge of the circuit, just about wherever he went, and managing to pull away a little bit from his teammate. In fact, Winkelhock coming through to take victory ahead of Steve Soper, Tom Christensen finishing in 3rd place, and Tim Harvey in 4th, with Justin Bell taking 7th position. Well, Anthony Reid actually went out of that race with electrical problems, so it was a great shame for him, having led the early part of the race and then having disappeared from view completely, and it meant that he had to start this second race right from the back of the grid once again. So Anthony Reid really having to fight his way all the time, and as we got the second race underway, it was Steve Soper making a very good start indeed, but Tom Christensen coming through and taking the place away. So the Toyota of Tom Christensen now in front of the 2 BMWs of Soper and Winkelhock, with Tim Harvey in right behind. Well, in fact, Winkelhock in 2nd place, Soper in 3rd, and on board with Tim Harvey, celebrating his birthday at the same time, and holding on to 4th position around the streets of Macau. A very challenging circuit indeed, very bumpy, but very, very fast as well, and one of the world's great driver circuits. Problems, however, a little bit further back, as Hassemi in the number 7 car, the Nissan, getting himself into trouble, and that was in fact to cause the pace car to come out after just 1 or 2 more laps. Meanwhile, Christensen had been passed by the BMWs. So Christensen losing out to both Winkelhock and Soper, and Winkelhock looking for his first victory on the Macau track. Once the race was underway again, the 2 BMWs were able to pull away from Christensen, who didn't seem to be able to have quite the same pace as he had in the early part of the race. But Anthony Reid, there he is, had fought his way up from the back of the grid and was coming back up into 5th and then back up into 3rd place after just a few more laps, fighting his way past Christensen. So Joachim Winkelhock coming through to take his 4th victory in effect in a row, with him taking the wins of the Asia Pacific Series at Fuji. So the 4th win in a row for the German. Steve Soper in 2nd place, Anthony Reid in 3rd, then Tom Christensen and Tim Harvey. Justin Bell taking 7th position.
I must say I was really happy to win the race, because it was a very hard fight against Steve Soper. He pushed me really hard. And so I must say I'm at the moment really satisfied, because for me it was now the 7th time here in Macau, and the last 3, 4, 5 years I was only 2nd and 3rd, and now to win both races, I can tell you I'm really happy.
And so to New Zealand in December for the 3rd and final event in the championship, with Joachim Winkelhock taking pole position once again ahead of Steve Soper and Tim Harvey. So once again, the battle between the BMWs very much on, and Winkelhock looking for another win. A charging start from one of the Motorola cars of Harvey and Bell, as they want to really try and take a victory in this last event in the championship. Well, a battle already beginning to develop up front, and the slippery conditions very obvious there, with the right front wheel just locking up. Steve Soper attacking Joachim Winkelhock, and Soper actually fighting his way around the outside of the German and going into the lead of the race. Two Schnitzer BMWs running once more at the front of the field, with Tim Harvey in third position. On board with Harvey slithering around a little bit in these tricky conditions. Great shot from on board the car, looking at the front wheel. Look at it off the ground there. And the track definitely drying up a bit as we go through the race. Still the battle going on between the two BMWs up front, and you can see there's no team orders at play here. Soper wants to take the victory from Winkelhock, but Winkelhock goes through into the lead, and it really is a tremendous tussle that develops between these two around the streets of Wellington. But then Steve Soper, to make a little bit of a mistake, locks up under braking, hits the back of Winkelhock's car, who spins round, but Soper's car damaged at the front there. As he tries to continue, the bonnet flicks open and he can't see where he's going. So Soper, having taken the lead in circumstances which he obviously didn't intend, it was a mistake to hit Winkelhock that hard from behind. It looked as though Soper was going to be able to take advantage, because he managed to go around the outside, but then the bonnet flying up and ending his chances, and Winkelhock in fact coming through to take the victory anyway. So Winkelhock winning ahead of Tim Harvey, Justin Bell in third, with Steve Soper still managing to get home in fourth position. On to the final race then. Joachim Winkelhock gets ahead of Justin Bell, who makes an excellent start. So Justin Bell, son of many-time Le Mans winner Derek Bell, up into second place, his first real experience of 2-litre touring car racing, being passed by his teammate Tim Harvey. More experienced, of course, Tim Harvey, and really enjoying himself in the BMW, getting used to rear-wheel drive once again, and chasing after the Schnitzer BMW of Joachim Winkelhock. The three cars running close together, but then problems for Joachim Winkelhock. Broken front suspension, putting him out of the chance of taking all the victories in all the races. So a great shame for Smoking Joe, but it meant that we then had a battle on between Tim Harvey and Steve Soper, the two British drivers, the two British stars of the Touring Car Championship. But then Soper making a big mistake on the exit of the right-hander, the back end getting away from him very quickly, and in fact it looked almost as though there'd been some sort of problem with the car, as it let go so suddenly, gave him no chance to recover it whatsoever, and Soper was therefore out of the race, and Tim Harvey was able to come through and take his first victory of the series. In the championship though, Joachim Winkelhock had taken the series ahead of Tim Harvey and Steve Soper.
On the street circuit, Joe Winkelhock.
Get a big support from the organizers, from each race, from Fuji, from Macau, here from in Wellington, and I think we improved the championship for the future.
Well, of course, all looking forward to the start of the touring car season of 1995. And talking of Tim Harvey, just to report that Tim racing with the Volvo team in the 1995 season. They actually had one of their test cars destroyed last week. Big accident for Rickard Rydell in testing at Pembrey, but it shouldn't hold back the Volvo program too long, and they're certainly feeling very confident about the pace of the new booted saloon version of the Volvo 850. Well, we'll be right back after the next break here on Motors with IndyCar action.